Major developments. This is a big night tonight in the Russia investigation. Now, the big breaking news, the House Intel Committee has now ended what has been a 14-month investigation into this phase of the Russian probe. And it's now starting to release details of what it has uncovered. This is the only, in this particular case, on collusion. We still have FISA abuse, Uranium One, the unmasking scandal, and of course the Clinton bought and paid for dossier. That's not included tonight. Here are the takeaways from the House Intel Committee. There is zero evidence, let me repeat, none, no evidence showing any sort of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. By the way, I hope Robert Mueller and his merry band of Democratic partisans and donors and witch hunters are all watching tonight. Their investigation should be shut down immediately. Now, the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, he needs to be investigated. We'll explain that. He's rushing to Mueller's defense, saying that the special counsel is, quote, not an unguided missile. And Rosenstein is trying to cover himself because tonight's brand new information proves that Mueller is in and has been in a giant witch hunt. Now, also tonight, the media, the Democrats, this is what you've got to take away from this. This has been going on for nearly 18 months, and they have been lying to you. They have perpetuated one of the biggest hoaxes in American history. We'll have more on that in a minute. But here are the other key findings from the GOP members on the House Intel Committee. There is a pattern of Russian attacks against America's key allies in Europe. Russian hackers use social media in 2015, 2016, as we have been telling you, to sow political discord within the United States. President Obama was warned in 2014. He did nothing to stop Vladimir Putin and Russia, even though he was warned specifically that this was happening. And the committee agrees with the intelligence community's overall assessment on Russian interference, but they find that Vladimir Putin did not have a preference for candidate Donald Trump. Now, congressional Republicans are also making very clear, and this part is important, the only part of the investigation that is closed regarding Russia collusion, that's it. They will still be probing what is unresolved issues involving the unmasking scandal, FISA abuses, and of course the Clinton phony bought and paid for Russian dossier. And also tonight, and this is also a major development, Sarah Carter, she'll join us reporting, and our other sources confirming to this show, an explosive revelation about the former Obama Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper. Now, Clapper allegedly leaked to fake news CNN information that then President-elect Donald Trump and then President Barack Obama were briefed about a part in the phony dossier. Now, that claims, of course, that Russians have compromised the information on, well, then President-elect Trump. And sources are also telling Sarah Carter tonight that Clapper was in contact with CNN's Jake Tapper at roughly the same time that CNN published a report about President-elect Trump and President Obama being briefed about the dossier. Now, if you remember, this created a huge, massive firestorm, and it helped lay the groundwork for the media's never-ending, hysteria, breathless Trump-Russia collusion conspiracy theory that they have been pushing ever since. And sources are also telling us tonight Clapper was either CNN's original source or the confirming source about the report on the dossier. And what's even more pathetic and more sleazy is that after allegedly leaking information to CNN, well, Clapper then put out a statement back in January of 2017. It reads in part, well, this evening I had the opportunity to speak with President-elect Donald Trump to discuss recent media reports about our briefing last Friday. I expressed my profound dismay at the leaks that have been appearing in the press, and we both agree they are extremely corrosive and damaging to our national security. Clapper was lying through his teeth. He was one of the leakers. And since then, by the way, the former Director of National Intelligence, he has been doing everything and anything possible to prop up this phony Clinton bought and paid for dossier. Watch this.
With respect to the dossier itself, the key thing is, it doesn't matter who paid for it. It's what the dossier said and the extent to which it's corroborated or not.
Now, we reached out to James Clapper for a statement. He works for fake news CNN on Sarah's report, and his spokesperson declined to comment, but he did note that Sarah's story appears to be about leaking information that was not classified or sensitive. So Clapper is not outright denying it, which tells you pretty much everything you need to know. We have for over a year been out here almost an island unto ourselves as we've been uncovering this scandal and telling you, as shocking as what is being exposed is only the tip of the iceberg. Now, the House Intelligence Committee 14 months, is still conducting very important investigations. They have nothing to do with Donald Trump, but they do have to do with unmasking at an unprecedented level, unprecedented use of the FISA law and FISA abuses, and of course the Clinton bought and paid for fake news dossier. This is only the beginning. You've been lied to for well over a year. Now back to the other key findings from the Republicans on the House Intel Committee. They prove what we have been telling you for over a year, that the media and the Democrats have lied to you. There is no Trump-Russia collusion. Take a look at this disgraceful coverage as a means of remembering what we've been saying.
A dizzying 24 hours in the Russia investigation, no longer just inching toward the president. This morning, it is more like careening.
I think this is a potentially more dangerous situation than Watergate, and we're at a very dangerous moment. And that's because we are looking at the possibility that the President of the United States and those around him during an election campaign colluded with a hostile foreign power to undermine the basis of our democracy.
Donald Trump is afraid. A political hurricane is out there at sea for him. We'll call it Hurricane Vladimir, if you will, the whole Russian thing.
This is evidence of willingness to commit collusion.
There's outright treason. I mean, there is no question that what he is doing is giving aid and comfort to the enemy.
John Friedman said the election hacking is at the caliber of a Pearl Harbor or a 9/11. Do you agree with that?
I completely agree with that.
Donald Trump now sits at the threshold of impeachment.
The only one who had anything to do with Russia that tried to propagate false Russian information was Hillary. Her bought and paid for Russian dossier. Anyone with half a brain could see that there was no collusion. Now tonight, the media in this country should be apologizing to you, the American people, for spreading outright lies, misinformation, propaganda for over a year. Now, Democrats are in the same boat as the media. They look like complete and total and utter fools tonight. And leading the way, of course, is the ranking Democrat on the House Intel Committee, and that would be Congressman, I want to work at Fake News, Conspiracy TV, MSNBC, Adam Schiff. Take a look at this painful and this pathetic evolution on so-called Trump-Russia collusion that we now know never happened and doesn't exist.
What do you got, Hart?
Well, Chris, unfortunately, I can't go into the evidence that's being
Do you have something, Hart, that you can't reveal?
I can't reveal that, Chris. Of course, there's one thing to say there's evidence. There's another thing to say we can prove this or prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, or there's enough evidence to bring to a grand jury for purposes of criminal indictment. I don't think we can say anything definitively at this point. We are still at the very early stage of the investigation.
Last March, you said you had more than circumstantial evidence of treasonous collusion with Russia. What specifically were you referring to? And please be specific, because if it's true, I do believe Americans have the right to know a year later what that is.
Well, I've certainly said that there's ample evidence of collusion. I've never used the word treason. Only Steve Bannon has used that word. But if you look at the facts that are already in the public domain, they're pretty damning.
That's it? Oh, the evidence in the public domain. You have no evidence. And Schiff knew the entire time there was no collusion, yet he went on TV some 250 times since the inauguration and lied his face off. Congressman Schiff is the epitome of a left-wing partisan hack. Then, of course, there's President Obama. Like we have been telling you, House Intel Committee Republicans are finding out, well, he did nothing to stop Russian election interference. Now, Congressman Devin Nunes, he started warning then President Obama about Russian and election interference in 2014. Obama ignored every single warning sign. Here's a headline from Nunes, an op-ed that he wrote in the Washington Times, and he writes, you know, the bear out there. Okay, that means Russia. And the House Intel chair goes on to detail the direct threat that was posed by Putin and the Russians. This is 2014. And what's worse is that while all this Russian interference was beginning to happen and was happening, Obama, just before the election, tried to shame then candidate Donald Trump, telling him to stop whining about an election possibly being rigged, because that could never happen. Remember this.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections, in part because they're so decentralized, and the numbers of votes involved. There's no evidence that that has happened in the past, or that there are instances in which that will happen this time. And so I'd invite Mr. Trump to stop whining and go try to make his case to get votes.
No serious person could ever believe it. Oh, until Hillary lost and you needed a big excuse. Then we'll believe it. Democrats should be ashamed of themselves tonight. All of this new information is revealing what they really, really are all about. Total frauds, partisan hacks. They don't care what they put the country through for, 18 months now? Democrats had the opportunity, Obama had the opportunity to stop Russia. And then after their candidate lost, it couldn't happen, but it did happen, because then it was about delegitimizing and smearing President Trump to divert attention away from what really happened, even though Obama said it could never happen. The truth is now finally all coming out, and this is only the start. I told you this was the year of the boomerang. There's a lot that still needs to be investigated. We will stay on it. It will be investigated. We do know the Obama administration. We know they were unmasking members of the Trump campaign at an unprecedented level. And, of course, Trump campaign associate. And then, of course, there's the Clinton bought and paid for dossier. We still need to get to the truth on that. Hillary Clinton didn't care about paying for false information, Russian government lies to influence an election. The FBI took that completely unverified dossier. They have a legal and an ethical and protocol obligation to do it themselves. They lied to a FISA judge. They never verified. They never corroborated. They never told the judge Clinton paid for it, to get a warrant to spy on a member of the opposition party campaign during an election year. And remember the Grassley-Graham memo, the dossier made up the bulk of the FISA application. And the former deputy FBI director, Andrew McCabe, testified, no dossier, there wouldn't have even been a FISA application. They never verified. They never checked. They didn't care. This is the biggest abuse of power scandal in the history of this country. It is the biggest corruption scandal, and it's only beginning. Sit tight, be patient. I know for a fact more information is coming.